The ship killed its running lights 3 hours before the enemy found it, and that was the first sign something was wrong. Above a burning Earth, evacuation traffic climbed in frantic ribbons of engine fire. Civilian arcs, hospital ferries, freight lifters packed with families. Everything that could still leave was leaving. Everything except one ship. It turned back. Old, scarred, and much too slow to survive a pursuit, the UNS Halcyon Vale rolled on its axis and descended toward the wreckage, choking low orbit. No distress call followed. No speech. Just that silent turn, made in full view of both fleets, as if the vessel had stopped trying to escape and started looking for something. Or someone. For 11 days, the Khelar Combine had prosecuted the siege like auditors closing a file. Their messages were calm, procedural, almost polite. Non-compliance notices, asset seizures, population transfer directives. Their models predicted what came next. Human states would fracture, leadership would splinter, and fear would do the rest. Instead, the closer Earth came to ruin, the less it behaved like a collection of countries, and the more it behaved like a civilization trying to preserve continuity at any cost. Parliaments went dark. Flags stopped mattering. Authority flowed into buried archives, monastery vaults, transit bunkers, old weather stations, submarine cable relays, anywhere history could be stored and protected. The Vale had taken aboard the last thing those networks agreed could not be captured. Not a president, not a treasury, not a weapon, a ledger. It was a monstrous thing in scale and ordinary in purpose. Birth records, burial maps, indigenous land claims, ecological treaties, war crimes, evidence, debt cancellations, water rights, migration histories, language archives, and every legal proof of who had lived, owned, promised, forgiven, inherited, and belonged. It was the memory of Earth in enforceable form. When the Khelar cutters intercepted the Vale and demanded inspection, Captain Ilyas Venn listened without expression. He was not some celebrated war hero. Most of his career had been spent escorting research barges and relief convoys through quiet sectors no one thought about. His reply was 6 words. "Inspection denied. We are recovering remains." Then the Vale opened its cargo bay and released thousands of memorial beacons into the debris field, each one tagging the dead and broadcasting burial claims on frequencies the Khelar reserved for sanctified zones. The enemy formation slowed. Their law had just collided with their objective. That pause should have bought minutes. Instead, it bought outrage. Khelar Command overrode local ritual restrictions and launched black-hulled pursuit frigates straight through the memorial cloud. Beacons shattered. Frozen bodies spun away into sunlight. Fragments of station hull glittered like broken glass around them. The footage reached the surface before the next volley did. Shelters fell quiet. Then Earth answered, not with missiles, but with infrastructure. Court clerks, students, cemetery keepers, technicians, choir directors, server admins, customs officers, librarians, railway operators. People nowhere near a battlefield opened every archive mirror still alive and pushed copies of the ledger outward through hidden routes. Weather arrays, mining relays, undersea cables, the emergency satellite scraps, antique transmitters that should have failed days earlier. And then the truth became clear. The Vale was never the escape craft. It was bait. While the enemy committed itself to hunting one visible ship, humanity had already begun scattering its legal memory across the system in fragments, buried inside ordinary traffic and static. The hunters had not cornered the prize. They had exposed themselves chasing it. When the frigates finally trapped the Vale above the broken crown of Earth's orbital ring, there was no hidden arsenal waiting for them. The missile tubes were empty. The spinal gun had been stripped for power. The engine shielding was failing. Inside an old prayer alcove beside the reactor sat the ship's real final instrument, a hand-loaded transmitter wired into the core. Captain Venn used it to broadcast one last doctrine into open-spectrum space. No conqueror could inherit jurisdiction over Earth's people, property, archives, or remains without documented consent of the governed. It was an old refugee law clause, dismissed for decades as sentimental clutter. Now it was being recorded by every neutral observer in range. The Khelar fired anyway. Emergency lights flooded the Vale red. Hull seams burst. Atmosphere screamed into vacuum. Paper prayer slips tore free and spun down the corridor like pale birds. There was no return barrage, no miracle reversal. Venn only ordered the transmitter gain raised. Outside, the ship drifted lower over the burning curve of Earth. Scarred hull reflecting oceans, smoke, and the shattered halo of dead stations. Then the reactor went white. For one impossible instant, the Vale became a lantern over the planet below. Not a weapon, not a triumph, but a witness mark bright enough to brand itself into every sensor watching. By the time the light collapsed, the ledger had already cleared the system. The hunters had caught the ship and lost the inheritance. Earth still suffered. Occupation came in places, famine in others. Graves multiplied faster than names could be read. But conquest never settled cleanly. The Khelar had desecrated the dead in public pursuit of ownership, and now every tribunal, insurer, allied observer, and client state had proof. Claims froze. Contracts collapsed. Annexation turned to scandal, litigation, and resistance. Years later, children were still shown the footage of one dim ship turning back while everything else fled. Because the last ship from Earth had not run. It had stayed long enough to make forgetting impossible.